Transpennine Express or CrossCountry, which has the best offering for first class on short journeys? Well, today I'm going to be trying out both on the same day to put them to the test and see which one wins out in terms of the seats and the service. Let's get going. Now, the main purpose of today's journey is a day trip down to Durham from my home in Newcastle to visit the passport office. I'm in the quite privileged position that my passport was running out of space a few years early, and with a significant amount of overseas travel planned for the year ahead, now seemed like a good time to go and get that renewed. Myself and my partner Kelly decided to take the opportunity to use this as an excuse for a day trip to Durham for lunch, drinks and a bit of sightseeing, and of course trying out a couple of new first class trains in the process. And first up for today, we're trying out CrossCountry. The cost of our first class tickets was £4 and 5p each. That was brought down slightly by using a 2 together rail card, and I also had a 10% off offer on my Amex. But just over £4 for a first class ticket seemed pretty good to me, and it was only marginally more than the standard economy ticket. We made our way over to platform 4 in Newcastle, and the train was ready for us. First class was in coach E to the rear of the train today. And I didn't really have any idea what to expect on board. I tend to travel with LNER when we do this route, so it's been years since I've actually been on a cross-country train, and that was always in economy. And I also wasn't sure what kind of food and drink service we'd receive, if anything, on this short journey. The first class carriage was pretty small, about half the size of the regular carriages, and right away we could see that the seats were a good size. Just 3 seats across, so one side had 2 seats and the other had 1. Some of the seats face each other with a table in between, but we just had 2 seats next to each other with a tray table. I much prefer this setup. You get much better leg room and don't have to worry about someone across from you. For the person sat towards the aisle, the tray table folds down and up so you can easily get out. And it's a good size and sturdy table. It would be pretty good for using a laptop if you were needing to do some work whilst commuting. Worth noting that the table by the window doesn't move. Underneath the armrest between the 2 seats was somewhere you could plug in some earphones for some reason. And the central armrest was a good size and could be moved up and down as you wish. But it was a good width that we could both use it without getting each other's way. And there was one power outlet over by the window. No issue if you're travelling with someone you know, but it might have been better located in the middle for solo travellers. Wi-Fi was available and it was easy to access and set up, although I didn't use it on such a short journey. The seat had a recline, and this works in the way that you see on many trains where you kind of slide your bum forward a bit. So the seat itself is kind of in a fixed shell, so you reclining doesn't impede the person behind you. I think the seat was maybe a little bit dated. It was just sometimes a little difficult to shift forward, and we did notice as well that once we did that the seat area underneath the cushion was exposed. But it was still a comfortable enough seat to be sat in. The headrests are comfortable too, but it is worth noting it's not adjustable at all, so you couldn't change the height, but it was about at the right level for me. And then looking around the carriage further, there were hooks next to most seats, and there was an information board at the end of the carriage. And then just outside the entrance to the carriage there was a toilet. Pretty basic and what you'd expect from a train, but it was a good size and easily accessible for disabled passengers. And after waiting on board for 5 or so minutes, we were on our way for an on-time departure. And as we started to pull out the station, a member of staff came around immediately. I thought potentially they were starting the onboard service straight away, but unfortunately it was just a ticket inspection. I had a look online to try and find out what we could expect in terms of food and drink. A complimentary food and drink service is offered. However, the CrossCountry website is very non-committal about which routes and what times you'll actually receive this. It does say on specific journeys and specific routes, and this route does have it covered, but they make no guarantees that you will actually receive anything. When we've done first class with LNER, we've usually received a drink about by the time we've got to Durham. Unfortunately today CrossCountry were a little bit slower than this, and they actually started bringing out the drinks trolley just as we were pulling into the station. So unfortunately nothing for us today. That said, I didn't expect much though. Any food or drink would have been a bonus. It was only a 15-minute journey, and I think given what we paid, the comfortable seats we had were more than enough. I think overall the seat was really comfortable to be in. Granted, it was only a 15-minute journey, but I think I would have got this on there for longer. The train we were on actually goes all the way down to Penzance. Now that's a 9-hour journey. I'm not sure quite how well it would hold up after 9 hours, but it'd probably be alright. But from what I've seen of the food menu, it's not the most extensive, and it doesn't include alcohol. But let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me give it a go all the way down to Penzance sometime. I was looking forward to trying out Transpennine later in the afternoon to see how that experience compared, and I was curious to see if we'd get any food or drink on board that one. But for now, we left the station and went into Durham in search of some coffee. The main place we wanted to try had a queue out the door, so we settled for somewhere else, which unfortunately was pretty bad coffee. But it wasn't too long before I had to leave for my passport appointment, which thankfully was really quick and really easy. and we then went to get ourselves some lunch and a few drinks. And before it was time to go board the next train, we decided to have a quick wander around Durham Cathedral. It was a beautiful place to walk around, and it's got a long, almost 1,000-year history, as well as a more recent claim to fame having been used for filming in the Harry Potter films and also Avengers Endgame. But before too long, it was time to head back up to the train station and get on our next train. So this time we were going with Transpennine Express, again in first class, and once again it was a really cheap ticket for us. This one came in at just marginally more than the CrossCountry one. This was £4.37 per person. Again, that's taking into account the 2 Together rail card and the 10% off that I got on my Amex. You will always find ticket machines at the station, but if you can, it's always best to pre-order well in advance to get cheaper tickets. We had a bit of time to kill before our train arrived, so we made our way down the platform to where our carriage was due to be. And we just stood here waiting, watching a few other trains go by. And we had a bit longer to do this when I looked at the boards again and saw that there'd been a bit of a delay in answer for our train. Nothing too crazy though, I believe it ended up arriving about 10 minutes later than it was supposed to in the end. There seemed to be quite a bit of excitement from some train spotters about this Pullman train, and then once that had gone by, ours soon followed. For our journey back up to Newcastle, first class is at the front of this train in carriage A, and the planned journey time was 22 minutes. That was the planned time at least. Once again, I had no idea what to expect on board in terms of the seating or the service that would be offered, and I was looking forward to see how this would differ from CrossCountry if at all. As we made our way on board, we found that the carriage was set out in a similar layout to the last train, with 2 seats along at one side and 1 at the other. Where the layout differs here though is that whenever you've got the 2 seats next to each other, these were all opposing another set of seats, so you always have the table in the middle and you're always facing someone. We really hate these kind of seats because we are both relatively tall, so it really kind of narrows down the leg room that you've got, and would rather not sit with strangers if we can avoid it, to be honest. So we actually ended up just sitting across the aisle from each other. Getting sat down, there was a fixed table in front of me and there was power outlets to the side, including a separate USB charger. Whilst my table was fixed, there are some that fold up, and these are intended for disabled passengers or people with low mobility. Unlike with CrossCountry, the headrest here is slightly adjustable, and it does have a recline that works in exactly the same way as the CrossCountry trains, but again, it was a little bit difficult to move, as demonstrated expertly by Kelly here. Yeah, almost got it. There you go. Overall, the seats were comfortable. I thought they looked a bit nicer than the CrossCountry ones as well, or maybe just seemed a bit more modern. Unlike with CrossCountry, there was plenty of space for storing bags overhead. Once we got on our way, I did notice one thing about the seat that I didn't like as much compared with what we'd had on CrossCountry, and that was the positioning of the leg for the table. I just found it was a bit restrictive on my legs. It meant I couldn't really just stretch out as much as I wanted to. But maybe that's an intentional thing to stop people hanging their legs out in the aisle. Again, there was a basic information board towards the front of the carriage, and that told us that we'd soon be arriving into our one stop along the way, which is in Chester Street. And this one stop is the main reason why this journey is slightly longer on the Transpennine compared with CrossCountry. Now, given the slightly longer journey time, I was a bit more optimistic that we might get a snack or a drink on this one, but unfortunately nothing materialised, and that's despite the fact that we were actually on this for longer than scheduled. As we made our way halfway over the time, we were stopped on the bridge for quite a while. Well, I'm probably being a bit dramatic, it's probably only about a 10-minute wait, but that is ultimately adding 50% extra to our journey time. So it felt like a relatively long time. But I guess it did give an opportunity to look out over the bridges and watch the metro go by. One of the tables did evidence that some people had received food and drink service earlier in the journey. And here's a quick view of the menu of what would have been offered on a longer journey. It definitely seems a lot more comprehensive than the CrossCountry one. Made a quick pit stop to the toilet, which was pretty much the same as what we had on CrossCountry, before we started to arrive into Newcastle. And overall, I was very happy with both journeys. Both offered a really comfortable seat. I think I slightly preferred the CrossCountry one. I think the seat layout worked better for us, and the seat itself was probably just a little bit more comfortable around the legs. But that said, I think both offer good value for money, even though we didn't receive food or drink on that short journey. It was comfortable, and we paid very little extra for it. And I would definitely consider both of them again for a longer journey. Really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see how this experience compares to LNER First Class, then watch this video next.